Hi, romance readers. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. Author KOSOKO Jackson joined me to discuss his queer rom-com, I'm So Not Over You. KOSOKO also chatted about choosing the character name Hudson Rivers, astrological signs, and underwear packing. KOSOKO also played QUICKIES Q&A. Enjoy, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hi, KOSOKO. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance.
Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Congratulations on the release of your queer rom-com, I'm So Not Over You.
Thank you. I'm super excited. I'm So Not Over You follows Kian Andrews, who's an aspiring journalist. He, like many graduates, has a lot of debt, and he just wants to be a journalist. It's always what he wanted to be. He wants to work for this company called Spotlight, which is the fictional version of BuzzFeed. And out of the blue, he gets a text from his ex, Hudson Rivers, deciding and asking him if they can meet.
Ooh.
Kian thinks they're going to end up happily ever after, that Hudson's going to apologize for their breakup. But in fact, Hudson actually wants a favor from him for Kian to pretend to still be his boyfriend when Hudson's parents come in from out of town, because Kian is the best thing that ever happened to him according to his parents, and he doesn't want to let them down and be more of a black sheep than he already is. Hudson comes from a very wealthy family in the South, specifically Atlanta. They own a brewery empire that is going to take over Anheuser-Busch eventually. Hopefully, that's the goal inside the book. In exchange for being a fake boyfriend for a night, Hudson will introduce Kian to an old boarding school friend of his who actually now coincidentally owns Spotlight and will be able to get him a job. But of course, in typical rom-com fashion, that lie grows when Kian and Hudson are forced to go down to Georgia for a wedding. And they have to continue this lie up for a whole weekend, and they have to confront their feelings that they thought were completely squashed.
Hudson Rivers. Hudson River, New York City.
Right.
Was that supposed to be the first thing that I, as a reader, am supposed to find funny?
In some ways, yeah. I wanted to make a memorable hero's name. And so I was trying to figure it out. And I was like, what am I going to name it? And originally for my first edits, when I was querying the book, we wanted to change what the family did as like a family business. So it changed to be a brewery. It was a pharmaceutical company before. So we changed it to be something like more creative. And I was like, what is something we haven't seen in the book before? And I was like, a brewery empire. And so then I was like, Hudson, and I was like, Hudson Rivers, because I live in the New York area. And I was like, this is funny. This is cheeky. And also because it's called River and Valleys as the like brewing company. And I was like, wow, this works perfectly.
I got that. I was like, I like what KOSOKO's doing here.
I tried. I'm glad that it came off, but I was like, this is a great name.
Where were you and what were you doing when the love story between Kian and Hudson first took root in your mind?
That's a good question. And I don't think it's as good an answer that I'm going to give. Is that, so I was talking to my agent, I think in early 2019. And I was like, I really want to write a rom-com. And he was like, you've never written rom-com before, but let's try it. So we wrote a whole bunch of proposal packets, which for your listeners is basically 50 pages, 50 to 100 pages, depending on the client, and like a summary of the book, selling on proposal, not finishing the book. And so I wrote 4 different 50-page proposal packets, which is practically a whole book. That's 200 pages in total. Before he was like, none of these are really working. There's like 75% of it is right, but something is off. So then I kind of just wrote a whole summary of ideas. And I had another friend that a year earlier, when I was originally thinking about rom-coms, I had pitched this idea to her and she was like, this is exceptional. Fake dating exes is great. Write it now. And then of course, the 20 ideas that I sent my agent, he was like, this fake dating exes, that's a good idea. And I was like, ugh, the one idea I didn't want to write, you picked.
What were your concerns about writing fake dating?
I don't like things that don't have love in them. So I was like, if I write a book about exes, then lo and behold, what's going to happen is that me and my boyfriend are going to break up. And so that was there's a movie that I want to watch about a woman, and I can't remember what it's called, where she's basically in a loveless relationship with her husband, and she finally admits and says, I'm not happy. And she like goes on a journey. And when I found that movie, originally my boyfriend and I weren't in a great place. And so I was like, if I watch this movie, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to find up the courage, tell him I'm not happy, and we're going to break up and I'm going to be alone forever. As you can see, my catastrophizing also shows itself in Kian throughout the book. So yeah, that's why I didn't want to write it, because I was like, it's going to set into motion a breakup, which obviously doesn't make any sense, but that's where my mind goes.
That's the powerful thinking of someone with anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Everything is blown out of proportion.
Yeah, it's like we're magical and we can make all these things happen with just by thinking about it. Second chance romances, I always say, are so difficult to pull off because you're writing two love stories. You're writing the first time the couple fell in love, and you have to believe they were in love the first time. And you have to believe that they fall in love, or, again, there's a second love story. And I applaud your execution of the second chance romance between Kian and Hudson in I'm So Not Over You. The breakup was relatively recent.
Mhm.
And I find that so much easier to believe rather than the second chance romances in which years have passed, bad feelings have festered, and I'm supposed to believe they pick up where they left off.
No, that's fair.
So was that purposely done on your part that you made it? I believe it was about 4 months, correct? That they had broken up. Did you use that short breakup time frame because you felt that it would be more believable? Was there a reason for that? Because that, for me, that worked really well into buying this into the love story.
It actually came from my editor, and I think the original draft, it was more like 8 or 12 months. And part of it is that these people are so young that she was like, 4 months is a lot longer feeling in a young relationship. So we can shorten it a little bit more. And also, which I think is a pro or con, depending on who you are as a reader, I don't really go into why they broke up. And that for me was more done, again, pros and cons, depending on who the reader is, because I don't think it truly matters why they broke up. I think that it's important that they did break up. Young love often just gets ghosted. It falls apart because someone said something wrong. We can be dumb when we're young. I think what's important is that these two people are destined to be together. And I wanted to kind of let the reader kind of decide on their own what it was. Now, if I was redoing the book again, I think all authors say this when they write a book, I will probably put in why they broke up to add more depth to it. But I think there is something interesting about letting the reader imprint their own reason on that.
Have you or anyone you've ever known fake dated?
You see, I think this is a thing that doesn't happen in real life. I have never fake dated. I'm trying, but let me think to make sure I don't say that. I've never fake dated anybody before. I've definitely had unrequited feelings and made up like a whole romance in my head that actually doesn't exist.
We've all done that, KOSOKO. I mean,
It's part of life.
Yeah. I've asked other authors of fake dating romances, and they too say they don't know anybody. Fake dating is so fake on every level. At what point will we get sick of reading and writing them? I don't know if we ever will. So your use of pop culture references and observational humor is a super entertaining and relatable way to concisely paint a scene, or in many cases to explain and explore Kian's feelings. Is Kian's running internal dialogue similar to your own? Because I feel as if it is.
So every single time I write a book, and I pitch all my books to my mother before I like decide if I'm going to write them or not. And she gives me her thoughts. Sometimes she loves them. Sometimes she's like, I absolutely hate that book. And it does come into play like whether I'm going to write it. When I pitched her I'm So Not Over You and like the pop culture, she was like, oh my God, Kian is you. And I hate it when she says that, because I'm like, I don't put myself in every book. But I am probably pretty obsessed with pop culture and pop culture references. So I do think in pop culture references.
It is the quickest way to explain everything to me is if you list one person or a show or something. I was like, okay, I totally get that person's headspace. I understand what they're trying to explain or express. So I love pop culture references, and I found them entertaining. The whole section about packing and packing enough underwear. I literally laughed out loud. How many pairs of underwear, if you don't mind my asking, do you pack for a vacation?
Which is funny because I just went on a trip with my boyfriend for a day. It was literally one day. And I was opening my bag and he was like, why for 24 hours do you have 4 pairs of underwear? And I was like, listen, okay, you never know what could happen. And you need basically 2 pairs for every day that you're gone.
That is correct. 3 days away, I would probably pack 6 to 8 pairs.
Right. Exactly.
I read in a Q&A that you are a Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you mentioned that it's the best sign ever.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hold that thought. And in I'm So Not Over You, You mentioned that Kian is a Taurus and his brother Jamal is a Virgo. Why is Scorpio the best sign ever?
My sun sign is a Scorpio, my moon sign is a Virgo, and my rising is a Scorpio. So like, I'm a strong Scorpio, which I had somebody do my chart and she was like, you will either be president or a serial killer. Like, that's very valid.
Wait a second. So is that because you have you said a Virgo moon? You said your moon is.
I have a Virgo moon.
Is that the serial killer part? Because I can believe
that.
that.
It's the planning part, and the Scorpio is the obsession part.
Oh, what are the attributes for Scorpio? Is it bossiness? I feel like there's bossiness, or did I just?
There is obsession. There's a little manic behavior. There's definitely vindictiveness. I'm very much the type of person. Every best friend that I have, usually from a job setting, I'm like, I hated you when I first met you. I wanted to push you down the elevator, and then I'm best friends with them.
Sounds like a Gemini.
Don't call me. No, not a Gemini. Anything but a Gemini. Like,
everyone has that reaction. When I mention Gemini, everyone has that reaction. No, not Gemini. Now, do you believe strongly in astrology and zodiac signs and your placements? Do you believe they play a strong role in compatibility, whether it be romantic or platonic?
I think it's a great way to start to see if you're compatible with somebody or if somebody can be compatible with you. I often think that zodiacs are just like a good way to bond over somebody. I don't use it as like strict guidance. If
you tell me what sign you are, I feel like I can immediately get some kind of impression of where the conversation is going to go.
Which I think is a good way to use it. But I think sometimes we're like, I've met some friends that are like, oh, I can't date this person because they're like an Aries. And I was like, I feel like that's a very broad generalization of somebody.
Yeah, that's worth exploring, why they would just negate someone right away for that. Right. I'm So Not Over You is your adult fiction debut. Mm-hmm. Up to this point, you've written YA or young adult fiction. Can you tell me a little bit about the type of YA and what prompted your decision to write an adult fiction romance?
Sure. So my YA debut, which came out last year, was Yesterday is History, and it follows a boy who gets a liver transplant that gives him the ability to time travel, and his love triangle with an activist from 1969 and the younger brother of his liver donor who comes from a time travel family. So that's like YA romance, which is kind of where I started the inkling of like, I want to write rom-coms. And then my YA second book, which comes out March 29th of this year, Survive the Dome, is a Black Lives Matter science fiction thriller about a journalist who gets trapped inside of Baltimore after a protest when an impenetrable dome falls over Baltimore, and him and these other POC activists who have to mobilize to survive. I love YA. I think it's really important to have like authentic representation of Black queer teens, which is why I write it. But I also just like, there's some limits in YA. There's like limits about like what you can explore topic wise, language you can use. And I was like, I kind of want to push myself a little bit more. And that's kind of how this whole like rom-com like stuff conversation started. I wanted to do more romance. I wanted to do more fluffy books. And my YAs kind of have a very speculative bent to them. I just wanted to like find a way to segment it. And I wanted to push my writing, which is how we kind of started the adult conversation.
What did you do right before this interview?
I got Panera. I got the flavored passion fruit green tea. And then I also got the chicken frontega for dinner later.
What are you currently reading?
I'm reading The Violin Conspiracy, which is about a Black woman's violin who gets stolen. And so, yeah, it's a thriller written by a Black author, and I love thrillers.
Awesome. What's the last book you read?
Ooh, that is a hard one. The last book I read was The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren.
I just read that as well. What did you think?
I loved it. I mean, Christina's an amazing author. Like, I just want to be them when I grow up.
Which book is on your to-be-read pile?
Ooh, that is a good one, too, because my to-be-read pile is huge. Mm-hmm. So I really am looking forward to reading, it's a YA book called The 99 Boyfriend of Micah Summers by Adam Sass. He's a friend of mine, and it's a queer YA rom-com.
What are you currently writing?
I am working on my next YA book that comes out in 2023, which is announced. It's called The Forest Demands Its Due. It's coming out through HarperCollins. And it's a dark academia book about an African-American teen who gets an offer to attend an elite boarding school in Vermont, but the boarding school in the town is cursed, and it turns out that anyone who dies within the town is forgotten, except for those whose family are descendants of the town. And this main character, who is not at all a descendant of the town, is able to remember the dead and could possibly break the town's curse.
Oh my God, I just got chills. I love everything about what you just said. Which is more difficult for you to write, the opening line of a novel or the very last line?
That's a good one. So I usually cannot start a book until I have the opening line. So I will say 99% of the time it's the opening line. But once I have the opening line, every book that I've published, the opening line has stayed the same because I'm pretty good at that. I think the last line is hard because I'm like, where do I stop? I feel like we can stick the landing a little bit more. So I think it depends on the situation. So it could be either one.
Could you name a character in your book, Liz Donatelli?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll be looking for it. What will you do right after our interview ends?
So it depends on how diligent I want to be. I have to write 500 more words. So that will take me about 10 minutes. I should be doing that, but I'll probably play video games.
Well, KOSOKO, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you better. Thank you for joining me here on Reader Seeks Romance.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.